Ask 10 maps where the Balkans begin and end, and you may get 10 different answers. On some maps, the region is a neat peninsula in southeastern Europe. On others, it expands northward, shrinks around certain rivers, or includes countries for historical reasons rather than strictly geographic ones. This uncertainty is not a mistake in one particular map. It is part of what the Balkans are, a region shaped by mountains, seas, empires, languages, religions, political borders, and outside labels. The word can describe a physical area, a cultural zone, a historical frontier, or a geopolitical shorthand. That is why the Balkans are easy to point toward, but surprisingly difficult to define. In broad terms, the Balkans refer to southeastern Europe, especially the lands around and north of Greece, west of the Black Sea, and east of the Adriatic. The area partly overlaps with what is called the Balkan Peninsula. This peninsula is surrounded by major bodies of water, the Adriatic Sea to the northwest, the Ionian Sea to the southwest, the Aegean Sea to the south, the Turkish Straits to the east, and the Black Sea to the northeast. These seas make the southern and eastern edges easier to visualize. The problem comes in the north, where Europe does not provide a clean natural cutoff. Unlike Italy or Iberia, the Balkans do not have a single obvious land boundary that everyone accepts. The name itself comes from the Balkan Mountains, a mountain range running across Bulgaria. In Bulgarian and Turkish usage, the word Balkan has been associated with mountains or wooded mountain regions, and it eventually became attached to a much wider part of Europe. The highest point commonly associated with the Balkans is not in the Balkan Mountains themselves, but in Bulgaria's Rila range, Musala, rising to 2,925 meters, or 9,596 feet. Mountains are crucial to understanding the region because they have historically shaped travel routes, settlement patterns, defense, and political fragmentation. But the name also shows a central irony. One mountain range gave its name to a region far larger and more complicated than the range itself. The modern idea of a Balkan peninsula is often traced to the German geographer August Zünd in 1808. Zünd believed the Balkan Mountains formed the dominant mountain system of southeastern Europe, stretching from the Adriatic Sea to the Black Sea. That was geographically incorrect. The mountains do not function as one continuous wall across the entire region in the way he imagined. But the label stuck. Once scholars, mapmakers, diplomats, and educators begin using a regional name, it can take on a life of its own. So the Balkans were partly born from geography, but also from a historical act of naming. The term became familiar even though its original geographic assumption was flawed. During the 19th century, the term Balkan Peninsula was closely connected to the Ottoman Empire. At that time, much of southeastern Europe formed the empire's European territories, often known as Rumelia. Because of this, the Balkans were not just a landform on a map. They were understood as a political space, the European provinces of an empire based in Istanbul. This made the term geopolitical from the beginning. It described a zone where Ottoman power, local national movements, European diplomacy, and imperial rivalries overlapped. As Ottoman authority receded, new states emerged, borders shifted, and the name Balkans increasingly carried the memory of that imperial transition. This is why defining the Balkans purely as a peninsula creates problems. Technically, a peninsula is land mostly surrounded by water and connected to a larger landmass by a narrower neck. But southeastern Europe does not fit that definition neatly. Its northern boundary is wide, open, and debated. Some geographers use rivers, such as the Danube, Sava, and Kupa, as practical dividing lines. Others reject the whole concept of a Balkan peninsula as too imprecise. Historical scholars often avoid the strict peninsula question and instead treat the Balkans as a region, a flexible area with shared historical experiences, especially involving the Ottoman period, nationalism, state formation, and the meeting point of different cultural worlds. By many common definitions, the Balkans include Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, mainland Greece, and significant parts of Serbia, Croatia, Romania, and Turkey. But even this list needs footnotes. Croatia is often counted only south of the Sava and Kupa rivers. Serbia is sometimes counted only south of the Danube. Romania may be included only through northern Dobruja, near the Black Sea. Turkey is usually represented by East Thrace, the European part of the country west of the Turkish Straits. These partial inclusions reveal the challenge. Modern countries rarely line up perfectly with older geographic or historical regions. Broader definitions stretch the Balkans further. Some include Slovenia in a limited or partial sense, often because of its historical links with Yugoslavia and southeastern Europe, even though it is also strongly connected to Central Europe and the Alps. Some definitions include the rest of Romania and Serbia, not just their southern or southeastern portions. Others may even mention Hungary or Moldova because of cultural, historical, or political connections to the wider region. Meanwhile, Trieste in northeastern Italy can fall within some geographic interpretations of the peninsula, but it is generally excluded from the Balkans as a regional concept. The result is a region whose edges depend on what question is being asked. The Balkans are not only hard to define because of geography. They are also hard to define because the term has carried emotional and political weight. In the 20th century, especially during and after the breakup of Yugoslavia, the word became associated in many outside discussions with conflict, fragmentation, and instability. This association produced the term Balkanization, meaning the division of a larger political unit into smaller, often hostile parts. But this can be misleading when applied carelessly. The Balkans have experienced conflict, but they have also been home to long periods of coexistence, trade, urban culture, intellectual life, and complex multilingual societies. A single negative stereotype cannot capture the region's history. Because of that stigma, many scholars, institutions, and governments prefer the term Southeast Europe. It sounds more neutral, more geographic, and less burdened by political judgment. Southeast Europe can include much of the same space, but it frames the region as part of the European continent rather than as an exceptional or troubled corner. Still, the older term has not disappeared. Balkans remains useful because it points to a recognizable historical and cultural zone. The key is to use it carefully. It should not be treated as a fixed natural fact, and it should not be used as shorthand for backwardness or division. One reason the region resists simple definition is that it sits at a crossroads. The Balkans connect Central Europe, the Mediterranean, the Black Sea region, and Anatolia. Routes through the area have linked empires, armies, merchants, migrants, and ideas for centuries. The Adriatic and Aegean opened maritime connections. Mountain passes and river valleys created corridors inland. The Turkish Straits formed one of the world's great strategic thresholds, connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. This crossroads position made the region dynamic, but also repeatedly contested. To call it a borderland is accurate, but incomplete. It has not only separated worlds, it has connected them. So what are the Balkans? The best answer is that they are not one single thing. They are partly a peninsula, though not a perfectly defined one. They are partly a mountain-inspired name that expanded beyond its original range. They are partly the historical space of Ottoman Europe and the later nation-states that emerged from it. They are partly a modern geopolitical label, sometimes useful and sometimes loaded with stereotype. Depending on the map, the Balkans may have hard borders, soft borders, or no universally agreed border at all. That ambiguity is not a weakness in understanding the region. It is the central fact that makes the Balkans worth understanding. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.